Okay, 7 o'clock, can we call this meeting to order, please? Someone rise for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Here.
Present.
Here.
Here.
Readers?
Nay.
Hazard?
Here.
Lewis?
Here.
Hernandez?
Here.
Quorum is established.
Any amendments to tonight's agenda? Yes, sir.
I want to pull Public Works number 6, Public Works 2018-14 off the consent, and Public Works 2018-15, number 7 off the consent.
You said 14 and which other one?
15, number 7.
Got
Second
it.
vote no.
Any other amendments?
Can you repeat those again?
Number 6 and number 7.
There you go, 6 and 7.
6 and 7.
Any other amendments? All those in favor of amending the agenda as presented, please state aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Moving on, we do have one presentation tonight, one of my favorite things to do, and that's to honor one of our local civic organizations. So we do have a presentation for the Knights of Columbus tonight. So we have a lot of the knights here tonight. Who's coming up? All of you? One of you? Bill? Oh, yeah. Fine. Welcome, gentlemen. Absolutely. Oh, thank you. And, gentlemen, we just wanted to have you here tonight and thank you for all you do, not only for the community. I know you do a lot for the community, helping the needy, and homebound, and elderly. I think I read, Cindy gave me a little fact sheet for the last 10 years since your inception, over 150,000 hours of community service you guys have done. That's just incredible. And working with our Parks and Rec and, you know, the River Festival, Hometown Days, the pumpkin pool, you guys are there whenever we need you, so we appreciate it very much. I would like to present this certificate of recognition. The Mayor and City Council of the United City of Yorkville present this certificate to the Knights of Columbus, God's Divine Mercy Council 14463, in appreciation for their contributions to the United City of Yorkville Parks and Recreation Department, and for their ongoing support and contributions to the Yorkville community. Presented the 27th day of February, 2018. I'll present that to you, sir. There you go, thank you. And I don't know if anyone wants to say a few words about the Knights. Bill, maybe? Absolutely.
My name is Bill Annie, I'm the Grand United Knights, and what you see up here is only part of the officers. We actually got over 200 members. We put on about 14 to 18 events per year, and as Gary said, all the proceeds go to the needy in the community. We help families directly through phone calls, other organizations. We also support Special Olympics, Equity and Dreams, and other organizations as well. We've got a big toy drive year over year, which is growing. We do the ribs in the river, we do candy drives, and all kinds of things. None of which would be possible without the help and support from the Parks and Recs Department. I just want to give a shout out to Tim Evans, Shay, Scott, Steve Redmond, TJ, and the whole crew down there that really support us. And we wouldn't be as successful without them putting all this stuff on. So I really want to say thank you very much, guys.
Can we get another picture with Tim and Shay? Well, you too? Shay, you bring the whole family. Come on, Shay. Absolutely. All right, thanks again, gentlemen. Okay, meetings always go downhill after that. So we do have a couple of public hearings. The first is on Metronet cable franchise agreement. So,
Mr. Mayor,
yes, go ahead, Kate.
notice is hereby given that the mayor and city council will hold a public hearing at 7:30 PM on Tuesday, February 27th, 2018, in the city council boardroom of the Yorkville Municipal Building, 800 Game Farm Road, Yorkville, Illinois, to consider the granting of an additional cable television franchise pursuant to Section 11-42-11 of the Illinois Municipal Code to Metro Fiber, LLC. At said hearing, the following shall be considered. 1, the need for an additional cable television franchise. 2, the capacity of the city's right-of-way to accommodate such additional community antenna television services. 3, the potential disruption to existing users of the city's right-of-way in providing new cable television services. 4, the long-term economic impact of an additional cable television system within the city. 5, other appropriate factors as determined by the city. At the hearing, interested persons may appear and be heard regarding the proposed new franchise agreement. A copy of the proposed franchise agreement is available for review in the office of the city administrator.
Thank you, Ms. Orr. Is there someone here from Metronet that would like to speak? Please state your name for the record and sign in if you would.
Good evening, Mayor.
Good evening.
Members of Council. My name is Kathy Scheller, Kathyschellerer. I'm in External Affairs for Metronet. I've been here before and presented before Council as by way of introduction of our organization, which is a fiber optic company, which provides internet, telephone, as well as cable television. We are excited to be able to bring competition to Yorkville for your residents. I think that is a very important thing, and also to be able to offer this world-class technology and infrastructure for the city.
Wonderful. We can't wait, Kathy. Is there anyone from the public that would like to comment? Hearing none, we'll close that public hearing. And we'll go into public hearing for the construction of a shared use path along ComEd easement from Kingsmill Lane to Riverfront Park. Bart, you have anything to update us on this, or?
We did have a couple slides. If there was anybody in the public that wanted to either make a comment or ask a question, otherwise we were going to rehash the entire.
Is there anyone from the public that would like to comment on this shared use path? Or hear more information on it? If not, we'll close public hearing. Thank you. Now we will go to citizen comments on items that are on the agenda this evening. Do you have anyone who wants to comment on items before the council this evening? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as amended.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Colosimo.
Aye.
Wilczewski.
Aye.
Lewis.
Aye.
Reuters.
Aye.
Moncastle.
Aye.
Coe.
Aye.
Hernandez.
Aye.
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 Locher.
Aye.
Motion passes.
I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the regular city council meeting of February 13th, 2018, as presented.
So
Any comments or corrections on the minutes? All those in favor of approving the minutes, please state aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, moving on to mayor's report. I'll entertain a motion to approve a resolution approving a license extension agreement with Whitewater Ice Cream, Inc., 131 East Hydraulic Avenue, Units A and B, and authorize the mayor and city clerk to execute. Comments or questions? Roll call, please.
Locher.
Aye.
Reuters.
Aye.
Lewis.
Aye.
Colosimo.
Aye.
Moncastle.
Aye.
Wilczewski.
Aye.
Hernandez.
Aye.
Coe.
Aye.
Motion passes.
I will entertain a motion to approve a settlement agreement between the city and Fidelity and Deposit Company of Maryland and authorize the mayor and city clerk to execute.
So moved.
Comments or questions? Roll call, please.
Yay.
Rulis.
Aye.
Delosima.
Aye.
Bunkhauser.
Nay.
Machuski.
Aye.
Hernandez. Coe.
Aye.
Wilchin.
Yay.
I'll entertain a motion to reject the submitted bids and to support staff in seeking a rebid of the project with a reduced scope.
So moved.
Second.
Comments or questions? Roll call, please.
I think Bart had a comment.
Oh, you had a comment?
So the latter half of the motion is not a legal requirement to issue the bids. Our intent as a staff level would be to reduce the scope that we had previously issued to the same $1.5 million worth of roads, $65,000 worth of water, $65,000 worth of sewer, probably about $300,000 worth of storm. So we're optimistic that hopefully our unit prices are a little bit better off because we're in the spring, although we didn't see historical numbers in the fall, so we'll see if that occurs. And then potentially make some policy decisions a couple months from now after we get bids back as to which roads we want to do, what the scope is, to then further tighten our actual decision-making process. But speed is the key here. We wanted to make sure that we hit our bidding window as soon as possible so that we get the best prices and hopefully we can do more roads.
Okay, if nothing else, roll call, please.
Hernandez. Coe.
Aye.
Wilchin.
Aye.
Raiders.
Aye.
Rulis.
Aye.
Delosima.
Aye.
Bunkhauser.
Aye.
Machuski.
Aye.
Okay, under Public Works Committee report, there were a couple items that came off of consent, so I will turn that over to Alderman Frieders.
Make a motion to authorize authorization 4 for the Kennedy Road Shared Use Grant.
Comments or questions?
Second, please.
Alderman Coe, roll call, please.
Coe.
Aye.
Wilchin.
Aye.
Raiders.
Aye.
Rulis.
Nay.
Delosima.
Nay.
Bunkhauser.
Nay.
Machuski.
Aye.
Hernandez.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Getting close.
Yeah, you got a little closer. I thought I was actually going to have to vote.
All right, and finally, I make a motion to approve a application for the recreational trail program known as RTP Grant Comment Fox Road Trails.
Comments or questions? Roll call, please.
Wilchin.
Aye.
Raiders.
Aye.
Rulis.
Nay.
Delosima.
Nay.
Bunkhauser.
Nay.
Machuski.
Aye.
Hernandez.
Aye.
Aye. Coe.
Aye.
Alrighty. We have no Economic Development or Public Safety Committee reports. For Admin Committee report, I will turn it over to Alderman Machuski.
I'd like to make a motion to approve an ordinance authorizing the Seventh Amendment to the annual budget for the fiscal year commencing on May 1st, 2017, and ending on April 30th, 2018, and authorize the mayor and city clerk to execute.
Comments, questions? Roll call?
Rulis.
Aye.
Delosima.
Nay.
Bunkhauser.
Nay.
Machuski.
Aye.
Hernandez.
Aye.
Coe.
Aye.
Wilchin.
Aye.
Raiders.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Our second one is just a kind of an FYI and for discussion. It's the building condition survey results of the historic jail. We discussed this at our committee and kind of want to bring it forward and forward to the public to see if there's any comments or suggestions of what we can do with the old jail.
Any comments from the council to start?
Can I be a wet blanket?
Yes, you may.
Whenever you talk about either tearing something down, giving something away, asking for an RFP on something, you get a whole bunch of people who don't normally participate in meetings such as these, and they're adamant that you save the jail. And I wasn't being facetious when I asked this return question, but I was expecting them to assume that I was, and they're like, save the jail. Why? Number one, we haven't had people there in a very long time. Number two, any previous attempt at an RFP, the response has been, all right, we'll take it from you, and then we'll invest X amount of dollars, and we'll do something. But not really fleshed out with what the potential for the property is. There's been some interest about making part of it into like a museum of some sort, and then making the other part, some sort of commercial enterprise. Whether or not that would fly, who knows? Every time that I've attempted to go see this jail, something else has come up and I've missed the opportunity. Jackie has illustrated very eloquently the current quality of the jail property. So, from my opinion, we're not doing anything with it, and I don't think it's worth saving. But I'm definitely open to opinions from the public. But I don't think that the historical quality of the jail is something that the entire jail itself should be memorialized or funds dedicated to preserve it in its rather interesting shape. So let's hear some ideas, but I'm not too excited about actually doing it with the property as the city is. That's just me being doubting Danny.
Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Yeah, I mean, I would not want to put any tax dollars into rehabilitating or putting into that property. I mean, we have budgets coming up that we need to talk about. We need to be a little more responsible with our money. I mean, if somebody were to come to us and say, hey, this is what I plan on doing, I'm going to put money into it and I'm going to do something with it from a private entity point of view, sure. But it's been sitting there. It's been sitting there for years. And nobody's come to us and said, hey, I mean, the fire department wants to practice on something, I'm good with that. I mean, seriously, what are we going to do with it? I'm not putting taxpayer money into the old jail. If somebody privately wants to come forward and say, this is what I'm going to do with it, here's my money, and let's go, more power to you. And we got to do something, because it's just an eyesore. I mean, if you saw the pictures of there's literally mold growing out of the carpets in this place. You say you go over, Joel, that you wanted to go over a few times to look at it, and you're lucky you didn't get to go into it. You probably need your shots before you go into that building. So either we raise it and then use the lot for something, a private investor comes in, but I'm not putting taxpayer money.
Anyone else?
I feel the same way. I don't think that we should put taxpayer money into it, but at the same time, it needs to go. It's a city building, well, like a city populated, buildings that we own, and those, I don't know if people want to say that, but we have other things we need to put money in. And from what I've seen, it's going to cost a lot to try to fix that. It's not.
You got something to say, I'm sure, Chris.
No, I hate to see this building in the type of condition it's in. You see the twin building that it has down southern Illinois. At one time, it was a beautiful building. Right now, it's a hazard to the public in its condition. I do think something needs to happen. I'm on board with the comments that are made. Tax dollars are not the answer to it right now. We don't have them. I would like us to see if, take one more stab at it, see if somebody wants the building. And at this point, give it away, let them have it as their problem, resolve us, or absolve us of any liability. It'd be nice if it could be saved on somebody's private dollar. But I think I said it in the committee meeting, those foundation bricks would be nice to, or the stones would be nice to go put out there on our courthouse hill as a retaining wall. Raise the building, it's got material, repurpose it. But I don't think we should spend tax dollar money on repairing this building with the condition that it's in anymore.
Yeah, it's a shame. I do love the old building, but I agree with everything that was said.
Plus I believe there is a spot you can't even go into it now, safety wise. So you wouldn't be able to see them.
Well, and the answer's simple. If this building was privately owned, we would be citing it every day. Right? He
Yes.
would be up there every day putting a sign out in front of this building on every single day. So, we can't even follow our own rules as a municipality.
All right, so
Double standard.
what's the suggestion?
So there was a two-part suggestion coming out of that admin committee. One was to talk about it tonight to gauge everybody else's temperature on ultimate use and direction. The second recommendation was to bring the agenda item back to the admin committee next month, along with the draft, either RFP or RFI. So something that would signal to the community, we're open to selling it, we're open to leasing it, to repurposing it, but more with non-city funds. So, we've already done the RFP once, so if that's the direction of the city council at a later date, that's easy to do. We can turn that around very quickly. If it's something more open-ended and concept-driven, then it might take another month to do. But we'll have a couple different options to choose from.
Why did we turn down that first RFP, the bid we got?
I didn't go back and look at the minutes to see if there was a formal rejection or we threw it into due diligence and then it just never came out of it a few months later, either private offer rolling out or the city just deciding not to do it. So I didn't see why. I just know that
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Well, I'm an old building person, so I'd hate to see it torn down. I agree, we don't have the money to do it. I was just kind of disappointed. It was on Facebook. I know I reposted, my son reposted it, and nobody from the public came out to give us some input. Be nice if you could get like a grassroots group like we had in the past and could get some people in some interest, but evidently kind of indicates maybe we just don't care, nobody cares about it, so.
Yeah, did you have something, Bill? Yes, you may.
I hadn't planned on talking, but I just would like to make a few points. The first point is that this property was purchased with a grant from the state, a historic preservation grant, which carries with it an obligation. I'm not even sure that you can hear them. I think we were given funds to protect this building. And as far as it not being unique, it's one of, I think there's like 3 of them still in existence in the state of Illinois. This particular building was on the state's 10 most endangered buildings list. So I think the state would now be super happy if they gave us $160,000 and you tore down the building. Part of the reason under my administration that we applied to get that grant was that at that time, IDOT was widening 47. And they would give us money to replace the parking that was lost along 47 there, only if we had a suitable city-owned piece of land that the lots could be built on. And we did not have anything suitable at that time. So we were able to purchase this with no local tax dollars used, and we got that parking lot at the foot of the hill there. And this was used after we bought it for a couple of years as a haunted house at Christmas at Halloween to raise money to pay for the insurance. We made about $3,000. That's all we were doing with the money. It's just to hold it. This was before the recession. I was told by one of the local developers that he would pay for he would take over and remodel the place for us. But of course, we all know what happened with the recession. A lot of people lost a lot of money, and I didn't push him for this. He was in no position to carry on what he had promised. I know when you last did the RFPs or whatever, somebody offered you $1. You, under state statutes, cannot take less than 80% of its appraised value. They don't let you give away city-owned land. And that's probably a good thing, because who knows who you're going to give it to. You know, might give it to somebody's cousin or something. So you need to get money back for the money spent. And like I said, $160,000, I'm pretty sure, of taxpayers' dollars was used to purchase this from the county. Now, I was around when the big discussion was on the courthouse. And the county board, at that time, there were a lot of people on the county board who didn't want to stay at the courthouse on the top of the hill. And when Denny Hastert came in with the funding, some of them were not super happy. But I believe, and this is my own personal belief, that these kinds of buildings are helping to identify who Yorkville is. If you take out all the historic buildings in our downtown, what do we have? We just have a bunch of stores, and like any other community. But we are the county seat of Kendall County. And that old courthouse, when you look up at the hill, overlooks our whole city. And it's beautiful. It is absolutely beautiful. And it's something that Oswego doesn't have, Plano doesn't have. It's Yorkville. And that's who Yorkville is. And I think that you could be a little more creative and look at some ideas like if somebody will renovate the outside, they could turn it into a restaurant. You don't have to have it be totally, pristine inside the way it used to be. It could be some commercial facility. But you could rent it for 99 years for $5. You could do something like that. And they could fix it up, and they could have a great, unusual place that would add something to our downtown. And that's just an idea, and I've kind of tried to avoid coming into City Hall and not, haranguing you with why I did this and why I did that. But there were some good reasons for why we did what we did, and I would love to see somebody make a good use of that building. But I would really caution you before you, hire somebody to tear it down to make sure that you're not going against what the grant said, because it was a historic preservation grant. So I just want to give you some background. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, anyone else? So this conversation will be continued back at admin committee? Okay. Yeah, and I agree. I mean, if we're gonna look at some commercial ventures or, anything, I mean, it's wide open. I mean, we're open to any suggestions. So, yes.
One thing we kind of touched upon it was the historic, I know way back, I think it was Joyce Barrett had told me when she worked on the courthouse, that building, it is historic, but part of the new addition is a detriment to its historic value.
Yeah, we had talked about that a little bit, and follow-up since then. So my interpretation is that there's nothing preventing us legally from tearing it down. The grants were actually twofold. One was from IDOT for acquisition of the lot to the north of the building, and then the second grant was a tourism type grant for construction or development of a city museum. And neither of which had historic preservation issues with it. So there hasn't been anything that's come up in the past several years in regards to the historic preservation. So depending on the voluntary programs and grants, it may make it more or less attractive if the the garage is not part of the overall building, but my direction at the last meeting, again, that I followed up on, was that because the newer part is actually in less good quality, that's really the problematic area, that there might be either structural issues or just, no value in renovating that at all. There's nothing architecturally significant about it. So it's all the old part.
If we somehow had, that was off of there, are there, and I guess, I haven't done any research on this, are there grants still out there for, historical preservation of it?
Yeah, and I didn't do any research in the last one. My statement at the committee meeting was I'm not aware of any. Nothing has come
I don't know
up,
with the
so-
budgets and everything, what's out there anymore. Because that, I know in the past was an issue. They thought if they lost that whole new section, which is the worst part of the, interestingly, the new stuff is the worst part of the building, that maybe it would be more historic and maybe you could get grants and funds.
Yeah. Okay, send it back to admin, toss it around some more, see what we can come up with. Okay, thank you. What do we have next there? No park board, nothing from planning and zoning, no city council report, city clerk's report?
Yes, if it's okay to do so, I'd like to go back and clarify the vote on the mayor's report number 2A settlement agreement. Was it all ayes except Funkazzo was nay, but Butcher, were you aye? I just want to make sure. Okay, is that correct?
Any community and liaison reports? Staff reports?
Just one item, Your Honor. We do have our downtown survey open, which has a surprising number of responses so far. We're approaching 200 as we've been
Oh, wow.
weeks.
Nice.
So that's great news. That's generated a lot of activity. The website is downtownyorkville.com/survey. So it's a really good survey. It's pretty short. It asks you who you are, what your preferences for downtown aesthetics, gives you a couple of good options, and will be a great resource for us to finalize the overlay district.
Nice. Okay. All right, with that, we will go to the budget presentation.
This is the fiscal year 19 budget presentation, so we'll get right into it here. This is going to be the same presentation format that we've reviewed each year the past 2 years. So, and specifically last year we did one presentation to City Council, we'll right into the public hearings, and then we just have to approve everything by the end of April. So tonight's outline, we're going to go through the entire budget. We'll try to do it as expediently as possible. And just as a reminder, it's a 5-year budget, but we only approved the fiscal year 19 budget. So we've got 1 year of authorization and everything else in running. So how do things look graphically? So the blue with the diamonds here is last year's budget proposal, and the red with the squares is this year's. So modestly better for the first couple years of the budget proposal. And then fiscal year 22 and 23, we have some decisions to make. So that's, again, general fund surplus. And you look at the actual fund balance that backs that up. We are doing, hopefully, modestly better where we did in fiscal year 17 and 18. 18 is the year that we're currently in. The 19 year that we're proposing through project deferrals and conservative budgeting, we are hoping to come out a little bit ahead. So again, we'll need to make some decisions as we get a little bit further along. We'll get into those in a minute. When you look at every fund added together So just a real rudimentary tool there, but it gives you some idea of cash flow. We're doing a little bit better in fiscal year 18 than we had expected when we approved the budget last year, and then through project deferrals, again, and conservative budgeting, we do think that we'll be a little bit lower than we're on our way up for next few years after that. So from an aggregate fund balance comparison, we talked about the $3 million mark as kind of our benchmark for fiscal distress. So last year's budget, we were going to hit that maybe sometime in fiscal year 20, or not 3 million, 5 million, excuse me, at the end of fiscal year 19 into 20 and 21. And we're mimicking that pretty close. So all the projects that we had shown in a 5-year budget are still in the budget. We've actually added some, and so we're still on the same trajectory that we were last year. So just big picture, it's important to note the fund balance in the general fund is about 30% for the better part of this 5-year budget. But it starts to tail off at the end of the 5-year budget, and it is offset by TIF fund negative fund balances. So both countryside in the interim, and then later on it's not much of an issue downtown, and some of the policy decisions we've made is offsetting our general fund reserves, so we need to talk about that. Our water fund is actually relatively stable, and over the long term, we're going to have a bunch of debt service that's going to fall off. Things are going to look pretty good at the end of the budget, and then even off budget too. And that is with a lot of projects planned that may either be deferred by our own choice or just delayed through no fault of our own. The sewer fund, in the past, we've talked about drawing it down over a 5-year period so that eventually we get down to a 25% fund balance. We looked at it this year and we did the budget proposal and said, why do we have all this money sitting in the sewer fund, especially if we're diverting non-normal sales taxes in there, if we have debt service and projects and operational issues in other funds, so we need to fix that. So we've said the sewer fund is stable. We can basically put that at 25% immediately, and we'll get into how here in a few minutes. Revenue growth we've been talking about at admin for the past couple months. Some of our major revenue sources are not meeting their expectations. So that's something that we have the benefit of months of warning and observation in order to make decisions down the road. And then again, we still do have a lot of capital projects planned over a 5-year period, particularly in the water and sewer fund. So just giving you a snapshot here of the general fund again. So this is the 5-year budget proposal for fiscal year 19 forward. So again, that's a surplus deficit amount. So if you just look at the general fund, we are not proposing a break-even or surplus budget in any of the 5 years within the general fund. But that's been actually, I think, the way we've done it for the past couple years. So through conservative budgeting, we just said, we've had a healthy fund balance in the past. We can either draw that down, or we're just not going to count our positive financial outlook before it hatches. So again, 30% targeted through fiscal year 21, but it is going to be weighed down a little bit. So this is the chart you should remember from the audit. It talks about what happened prior to the recession. We thought that we had a massive fund balance. It was offset by bond proceeds. It was much lower than we expected. Then we had some bad debt issues. Then we actually ran a negative fund balance, which for a couple of years was pretty interesting. And then going forward, we've significantly reduced our fund deficits. Some of that was rec center, some of it was countryside TIF before we had the hotel come along. And so our $3 or $4 million general fund balance had not been as high as we had expected, just because of those funds that are tied to the general fund. So I'm going to take this chart and I've squished it to the left here. So it's the same thing as highlighted, so it's the same shape. So now we're going to overlay our 5-year budget projections, so out to fiscal year 23. So this is without addressing any fund deficits or anything else. So, we've shown this for the past few years that we're eventually going to draw these things down, and we need to monitor this and be conservative with our revenues and expenditures so that hopefully we can continue to reverse the slide, which we've been doing for the past 2 or 3 years. So with the fund deficits is different from last year to this year. So countryside, we're making a $700,000 payout to the hotel, assuming it's done this year. So that's an impact in fiscal year 19. And then on top of that, we made the policy decision to take the opportunity to buy the downtown bank building. So the impact of that is slower because it is $200,000 in debt service on a short-term loan each year. but it does add up and has an impact. And if nothing else happens in the downtown tip, that's going to continue to weigh on us each year in the future. So the projection is going to be, and we'll get into it a little bit, Countryside is basically solved. That is looking very good in a 5-year period and beyond. And even if nothing else develops after the hotel, we're in pretty good shape there. We might even be able to close it out, which is great. Downtown is now in the position that Countryside was a few years ago. So that's why we're going through our TIP 1 and TIP 2 extensions and trying to move that along. So moving on from the general fund, water fund again is strong. So there's a lot of projects, no rate increases in fiscal year 19 proposed. We're proposing to bottom out for a couple of years while we do these projects. But then in fiscal year 22, 23, you have debt service fall off to the extent where fiscal year 23 are above 60% without an issue. So that gives us a lot of room either for water study related projects, Fox River intake, we end up going to Lake Michigan, any of these things, we'll have money socked away for those types of expenses. Sewer fund, we talked about this. Last year's budget projection had a slow slide down to about 25% in fiscal year 22. We looked at that again and said, there's no reason for the sewer fund to have all this money, especially if there are no, if all of our capital projects are fully funded, which we'll get into and are. So we've said, stop dumping non-home rule sales taxes into the sewer fund. Let's use that in the debt service fund, the citywide capital fund, and to a certain extent, in some years, the general fund. So again, all this put together, this is our aggregate city fund balance that we're monitoring and making decisions on in hopes that this fiscal year 19 to fiscal year 20 period doesn't occur, because that will be the time basically that we need to start making some decisions. So with all of that being said, a lot of projects capital-wise, more so than we've done in a number of years. So we've done Game Farm, which was $4 or $5 million, Countryside, which was $4 or $5 million. So those are our big one-time things that we've had to do with fund. But we have so many different moving parts within so many different funds that it gives us a lot of flexibility budget-wise if we ever hit to a point where we say we just need to stop for a little bit on these projects. So park construction related to grants, park construction related to receiving land cash impact fees, which is great. All of our expansion state highways is fully funded within a 5-year budget, which is not something that we could say 5-6 years ago when we were trying to figure out how we were going to fund all that. So we've been very successful in managing to knock off these obligations each year as it goes along. We did put the well 7 standby generator in the budget last year, but we've actually firmed that up a little bit, and there's no reason that we should be stopping that. And that is really a great piece of security for the water supply for residents going forward. So fiscal year 21, we've got all of our highway projects, and then we got road better roads. We do have a sewer SCADA system plan, and then we did put feature park replacement in there too. So a lot of these unfunded mandates are getting knocked off. So again, this is what we're looking at long term. So some of this is good because we've sold bonds and we've collected impact fees and user fees in order to do major capital projects. So, when we're at $12 million, I mean, a fair amount of that is earmarked for projects. So it's good that we're spending it down in completing projects. Okay, so on to our items of note section. And so I'll hit each one of these briefly, and they are all in the memo. Again, purchasing manager savings report, we're saving money. That tally doesn't include any soft costs. So it's actually higher than that, it's just harder to quantify. We've talked about it at the committee level, I don't know if we've actually talked about it at city council. Oswego is saving lots more money than we are. They have an existing bond outstanding for their police station construction. So one of the projects from the purchasing manager was to just delay payment to 60 days on invoices. So they are gaining interest. So that's a significant saving for the local initiatives. So we are proposing to continue that for 5 more years. Bond refinancing is unscheduled, but we'll see what pops up. Property taxes we approved a couple months ago. It is a 2.1% increase from last year to this year, but that's okay because we left money on the table related to inflation. And so it should be flat as long as your property didn't go up greater than 2.1% in value. Downtown TIF, we've been talking about that for months. TIF 1 extension is in flux, at least as far as timeline goes. due to the county's vote, and then we're actually negotiating back and forth with school district staff on a proposal for the TIF 1 extension. And then TIF 2 is up for consideration. There's a public hearing 2 weeks from now. That'll be end of March, early April for an actual vote. Again, we talked about capital projects. There's a lot in there. The actual dollar amount is going down, but we're completing a larger impact throughout the community. And we are funding a lot more projects in water and sewer fund. The Road to Better Roads, we talked about as a catch-up year, so we have a couple projects here and there. And then we're proposing to do a complete pavement scan in fiscal year 18, so that's in the budget. And then we'll propose a 5-year program after that. So unfunded capital projects, this is some good news here. Sewer SCADA system has been in the budget. We knocked that off this year. We're proposing in fiscal year 22. So that'll allow us to monitor sewer and pump station issues in our infrastructure system that now have to be checked basically by physical site. So Beecher Park Playground has been an issue, that's in there too. And Mill Road, one of our highest unfunded capital projects in probably $1 or $2 million, and it's not the budget memo because we don't have a proposal yet. The developer for the Grand Reserve subdivision has told us that they have the project budgeted at their cost for immediate construction. And so we are working on a funding agreement and then operations and management agreement with them to be able to bring that in front of you in the next month or 2. So that was something that was a significant issue just because of the deterioration of the road crossing there. The developer has said, we know this is our obligation, we want to get it done and move on to other things in the subdivision, so we want to do this now, which is a huge deal. So a little bit of counting chickens before they hatch there. But hopefully within the next month or 2, that'll be in front of City Council. So we didn't include that in the budget. Water rates, we're at the end of a 5-year planned rate increase. Last year was flat, this year's flat too. We are proposing 5% aggregate growth that can come through growth or rate increase in fiscal year 20 and beyond. IMET loss, we've been talking about that each year for the past 4 years. The budget memo says $15,000. I think the day after I released the budget memo, we got another $15,000 from IMET, so that number is $30,000, which is good. Litigation is ongoing. There's been some articles about the person who's been arrested for fraud, trying to leave the country, and the feds got him. So that's the news of that too. City council goals, we didn't go into that in depth in the memo because we did our action plans. So generally everything that's in there from a proposal perspective is carried throughout. Timing, we'll have an update for you probably towards the end of the fiscal year, just on RFPs and all these other things. Building inspection load was higher than it's ever been in recent history for Yorkville last year. We did beat most of our neighbors for a number of inspections, but we're actually hearing from builders and developers that there's a little bit of softening demand due to the build program expiring, that some of the local builders don't have as many lots to choose from, and then just in general, they're a little bit more pessimistic than they were in Yorkville a year ago. And some of that is just because we built 152 single-family homes, which beat everybody else in the region, and then there were another 60 multifamily units. So there was a significant spike in supply that we didn't even project. So some of that is just maybe a market correction. So accordingly, we haven't proposed any plan reviewers or building inspectors within the 5-year budget, but we have the ability to share services and outsource if needed. Engineering department cost analysis, this has not changed actually from the audit, so those are the same figures we're recommending to still outsource for the 5-year period. The $250,000 from the Bristol Bay Regional Park sale is still sitting in the citywide capital fund in reserve until we make a decision on what we're doing. The build program, just as an item of note, is closed, so you can apply for a new one, but the program allowed you to construct the home over a year, and then we issue the payment when the new person moves in. So you will still see that show up on the bill list from time to time. And so we haven't really made any revenue assumptions that are major impact in this year, just because that's still going away. And then after 20, we did some somewhat conservative revenue assumptions. Land cash, after we close out Riverfront, Bristol Bay, we have a decision to make with about $300,000 in unobligated land cash funds. So the proposal will be for completion of the Riverfront, which is a regional park, which is the Bay Regional Park, for some parking lots and other things that will make the park more usable. We're having Kathy review those to make sure that that's legal. We have to go through and do some allocations in developments that have given us those funds to make sure that that's okay. So that's something that will be in the next couple months. We did put in the municipal facilities master plan in there. We did spread it out over 2 fiscal years. That gives us time to draft the RFP, to do our due diligence on a non-accelerated timeline. And then quite frankly, if the budget projection ends up turning out as true, it would give us plenty of time to be able to defer that project if we had to. So that is there over 2 fiscal years. And then the sewer fund, we talked about that a little bit. We have $1 million plus in non-home rule sales taxes that are currently being shipped into the fund for the Rockaway sewer bond from years ago. We're meeting that with user fees, with sewer infrastructure fees, and all of our capital projects are funded. So we said, why don't we stop pushing that much money into the sewer fund, use it to pay off our in-town road program bond from 2004, we're still paying off. Game farm debt service, limited amount of countryside debt service, Route 47 debt service. So there's other debt service elsewhere that we can fund for the majority of those 5 years. All right, so that's all of our items to note. Within the small picture, again, the budget memo gets into more detail than I'm going to get into here. Just going to hit a couple of high points. If anybody has any questions about individual line items, we can run reports. We can answer questions. That can be done really at any time, just with a simple email to me. So property taxes is good news in that even with our 2.1% increase, our police pension performance has actually been ahead of schedule, which has reduced that sub-levy. So we actually I think, decreased our contribution in the police pension by $3,000 from last year to the year prior. That had been the sub-levy in years past that had been going up 15, 20% some years and was eating up a larger portion of our corporate levy. So the fact that that isn't not only not increasing 20%, but it's actually decreasing is a benefit to the general fund. So that gets into the property taxes for that one too. Sales tax, again, we've talked about, but admin really is our big leader. So from fiscal year 16 to fiscal year 17, we saw just under 6% year-over-year growth, which is much more than we had expected and was an indicator of residential growth in the area picking up. The economy is strengthening. So we increased our annual revenue growth assumptions from 2% to 3%. And so now, since we're at 0.8%, I think year to date from year over year, we're going to revise that back downward to 1.5%. Our next benchmark will actually come next week when our holiday sales report is filed with the state. So we'll know whether we had a good year, bad year on both non-home sales taxes and regular sales taxes. And we'll be able to make some decisions as to whether that number is going to continue to underperform our budget estimate. So that's something to think about. And 1.5% when we decrease that on an annual basis is a loss in the early years of only $150,000 in the budget, but in the later years it's $300,000 or $400,000, which is significant. So if that doesn't turn around either through growth or just online sales taxes being figured out either by the federal or the state government in the next few months, it could be an impact to us. Hotel tax, we didn't increase any, didn't budget any increase simply because we didn't know how much in transfer sales would go between our existing hotels. And then also 90% of whatever we receive ends up going to tourism bureaus, which might have an impact on the budget. State income tax is our other major revenue source to watch. So it's about $1.5 million, so less than sales tax, which is good. It is per capita based, comes through the state. So the good news is that we're going to see an increase because we've added 2,000 new residents from the last time we did a census. So that's a significant increase in revenue each year. But on bad news, the state economy and the state receipts are a little bit underperforming those expectations. So that's something to watch. But then also, the state, when they fixed their budget issues last year, accelerated the payments by 2 months. So we're now, as they come in, basically we get those revenues, but they cut our distribution on a monthly basis by 10%. So we still got the same amount of cash over a 12-month period, but because we use an accrual basis of accounting, we can't book 14 months of revenue in a 12-month period. So it ends up being a budgetary loss of about $50,000. So that's something to just watch, depending on whatever the state is going to do with their budget and the election here in the next year. Good news, building permits we said were up, inspections were up, so that's great, because that's revenue, but it's one-time revenue, and that's an issue we used to have with stocking that way in our general fund. Okay, on to expenses. Just across the board, all departments, there really isn't much that's changed from last year's budget proposal to this year. Salaries, we've got the union contracts in there. We do have the compensation plan, which will be reviewed at the admin committee next month. So we budgeted for that just on the off chance that that gets approved. So we're trying to be conservative there. Health insurance at 8%, the IMRF employer contribution with modest increases. IMRF actually had a really good year. They had some good return on investments, so our contribution might actually go down in the future. So that's something to watch too, that could be a little bit of savings for us. We still have tuition reimbursement is already approved for our employee policy manual. Training, similar budget amounts as the prior years. Conservative growth in fuel, electricity, natural gas, if there are any costs for the buildings. Professional services throughout all departments are listed out in a pretty good summary in the memo. But again, that's kind of your catch-all for outsourced things. We can run a report if anybody wants that. No new staff across all departments. And then we did have computer replacements in each department. So our IT consortium recommended 3 years for a laptop, 4 years for a computer. Whether we actually get there for a replacement is a different story, but we're at least budgeting for it. So there are, I think, $40,000 or $50,000 worth of computers in the fiscal year 19 budget, which then decreases each year going forward as we get, replacements get scheduled. The one big project in the departments is the Unified Development Ordinance, which is a modification of your subdivision control ordinance, which is the mechanism that developers use to develop in the city. Hasn't been touched since, I think, 2002. Needs to be updated so it's both clearer and fairer to developers and easier for us to administer in this working process. So that's something, it's $100,000, is what we're budgeting between 2 fiscal years. Similar to the municipal facilities master plan, we would propose to go out to RFP, do the due diligence to select somebody, and then if the budget proposal ends up being a little bit in line with, if it is in line with what we expected, we would then defer that at a later date. And then admin services, again, purchasing manager continuing, facilities manager, we are hiring right now, so that job posting is outstanding. We've got a second interview 2 weeks from now. So that is in there for a 5-year period. We've got the GC Housing Rental Assistance Program, which should be awarded to 3 recipients here in the next month or so. Wrigley's utility tax, so for the Skittles factory, we did the incentive agreement. Amusement tax rebate for Kendall Crossing, which we've done for the theater. PennCom dues increase, which we actually approved tonight's agenda. And that's both on the operations side, that increase, and the new world agreements that we approved as prior. And then an IT contract hours increase. So we pay for 8 hours of IT services per week with Oswego, and Oswego pays 32 hours to our IT vendor. And the contracts are drafted such that there's flexibility in the week. We've done an analysis in the past year. It's been 50-50. So Yorkville's been paying 8 hours and been getting about 20 hours of service and probably needs a little bit more than that. And Oswego has been getting 20 hours and has been paying for about 30. So there will be some reconciliation that occurs on our end here in the next month or so. But then we looked at that and said, with all the projects that we have going on IT-wise, we need to increase that hours. And obviously this isn't the same. So that's coming forward. And then admin services. We talked about the transfer of the non-home sales taxes into the sewer fund. So that's reflected here in the admin services line item. 2 transfer line items. One to debt service, so that's going to go up because we're paying in-town road program debt service with our non-home sales taxes. And then the transfer to the sewer is going to decrease because we're using that to pay debt service elsewhere. So after all that, in the general fund, that's what you're looking at for fiscal year 19 dollar. Again, the $335,000 deficit plan is similar to what we've approved, I think, each year for the past 2 years, and is okay because we think that we're being conservative with our revenues and expenditures, and that number will reverse itself by the end of the year. So getting into the other funds, Quickly, Fox Hill, Sunflower, the levies that we've already approved in December, the projects that we've talked about, management contracts, entrance signs, those are all included in there for both subdivisions. Motor fuel tax, the big change here, we are continuing to draw it down, which is what you're supposed to use motor fuel taxes for. We shifted salt, street signs, a couple other line items out of the MFT fund, put it in the general fund, and then we did all of our Road and Better Roads projects for the next year going forward in MFT. So it's a little bit easier for us to administer a road project than it is to do resolutions for salt and street signs and all those other things. So that was more of a staff decision. Citywide capital fund, we are showing that the road infrastructure fee needs to be reinstated each year for the next 5 years. But we do have a municipal facilities plan. We have a modest, either one or medium-sized fueling station for our vehicles, or maybe a couple two mobile ones at different facilities. Our purchasing manager is saying that that return on investment will actually be realized after 2 years. So that was a no-brainer. We need to do that as soon as possible. And then a lot of capital projects throughout. Vehicles, one police car. Public works trucks are not in this fund anymore. We actually looked at the trucks that need to be replaced. Each year in the next 5 years, they're all water and sewer trucks. So we said, since those are the ones, we're going to push that into the water and sewer fund. So we've done that. And then the fund balance for the Parks and Recreation facilities. Debt service, I mentioned, there are no non-abated property taxes. So we're not putting any of the debt service payments anywhere in the budget on property taxes. In addition, instead of paying for our old in-town road program bond in the general fund and impacting operations, we said, why don't we use non-local sales taxes to pay for that? So that transfers in there too. Water fund, the good news is that not only will water sales better than expected for the third year in a row, so that's compounding, but we're still projecting that water rates should stay flat. We're not recommending a change in the water infrastructure fee, which I think is $4.25 per month. We still have a lot of capital process in there. So from a housing start perspective, we are estimating only 120 new housing starts this year, which would be down from 152 is what we saw in 2017, and then slightly lower just to be conservative in fiscal year 20 plus. We'll have all of our water study, land acquisition, cation, media exchanges, which we haven't talked about yet, well rehabs, and then expansion projects. Sewer rates, we've got our rates approved in there from last year of the 5-year schedule, so we'll have to revisit those next year. We do need to keep the sewer infrastructure fee in place to be able to fund things like the SCADA system, which is proposed for fiscal year 22. And then again, we're choosing to accelerate the drawdown of those fund balances immediately to 25% fiscal year 19. Land cash, we're going to close out Riverfront, Bristol Bay, so that's going to leave us with a little bit of extra revenue for other projects. Windette Ridge, we've been getting impact fees in. Caledonia has been building, we've been getting impact fees in there. So we are tentatively planning parks for fiscal year 19 and for 2020 in those two subdivisions. The Blackberry Creek Nature Preserve is generally up in the west end of Grand Reserve. It's paths and parking lot. It needs to be constructed per our Oslo grant from a couple years ago. Parks and Recreation Fund, not much to say there other than Tim continues to do a good job of gaining enrollment, raising revenues, cutting expenditures. So they've been significantly beating expectations on both sides of the ledger over the past couple years. So nothing new there other than we're trying to expand the program. Okay, last two funds here. Countryside. So I mentioned that this is not much of an issue for us. When we pay the $700,000 to the hotel developer, assuming they open their doors at the end of this calendar year, the fund will be in deficit and will compound the negative fund equity immediately in fiscal year 19. So it's going to look upside down. But the hotel and the banquet facility, our conservative estimates are that not only are they going to right-side that in fiscal year 20 with a partial year's property tax payment, but that in fiscal year 21, when you have a full year, it's going to completely get rid of the debt service, the fund balance issues, and elsewhere. So it should go neutral. The entire fund should be neutral by the end of our budget cycle, hopefully. And the TIF doesn't close out until fiscal year 2029. Our debt service actually extends for a couple years beyond that, but it's a manageable debt service payment. So we're actually thinking that we can probably just prepay that, put it in escrow, and then it won't be an issue. So the even better news is that there are still 3 outlots that have been undeveloped there. So if you get a modest fast food restaurant or a sit-down restaurant or even just another multi-tenant office building, that's all good news for the fund and would allow us to potentially even close it down even earlier. So that, as far as city council decisions go, is off our table for a 5-year period. It's the first year in a long time we've been able to say that, so that's really exciting. Downtown TIF fund is the opposite. So because we chose to strike the opportunity to buy the downtown bank building, and we're paying that debt service off, if there are no new projects within the downtown TIF 1 fund, that'll be something that we'll have to reckon with in 13 years when the TIF fund closes. So our focus has been and will continue to be to draw medium-sized, large projects, even just small rehabs throughout the downtown TIF to be able to generate revenue that will offset that fund balance issue ongoing. So, but in the meantime, it takes a couple years to build something, get on the property tax rolls. We're still paying our debt service, which is a short-term loan for the downtown bank building, a couple $100,000 per year. It's going to cause you to have, $1 million plus, approaching $2 million a year of fund balance equity issue that's just a drag on the general fund. So that's something that we're hopeful that if TIF 2 gets created, there's a major project there, or if somebody is able to do something in TIF 1 that generates it, or if we can extend it, that'll spur a couple people to act, and then a couple, moderate-sized projects will turn around the fund in full. Last but not least, we did put downtown TIF 2 in the budget. It's $6,000 of expenditure for the information. So for some reason we voted down, we just don't approve it. That fund can just be scrapped from the term. Well, that's it. I missed my target by 3 minutes, and for that I apologize. Our budget schedule again, presentation tonight, 2 weeks from now, and then debate and potential approval. You've got 3 full meetings without a public hearing on it in March and April. As always, the full budget proposal PDF, and then even our Excel spreadsheet is available on the website right there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right.
Excellent.
Yes, I
Anyone have any questions for Bart at this point?
Oh, geez.
Ease into that next time, would you? All right, but if nobody has any questions right now, feel free to email Bart with any questions, or he's going to be out of town for the next week and a half or 2 weeks.
Wednesday. So I should be available.
Okay, any additional business?
We do have an executive session for litigation.
Yes, we do an executive session. Before we go to that, on March 17th, we have our downtown St. Patty's Day festivities. We do a first annual St. Patty's Day parade coming up. And I was asked if the city council wants to have a float in the parade.
You're Irish.
You're wearing green.
I was gonna say, do we have anyone who volunteers to be the leprechaun?
Who's got a beer? Yeah, that's gonna happen.
I volunteer as tribute.
Anyone want to be on the float for St. Patty's Day parade? I'll wear a leprechaun hat.
That's a Saturday. It's That's the day of the Kiwanis and pancake breakfast is on the Aurora, so we can go eat pancakes and then come out here.
Pancakes and beer. All right, Tim, I'll probably still drive a car to lead the parade, but it doesn't seem like much enthusiasm for a city.
Oh, I'm down with every party, you know that. Yeah, that's good. I'll be there. There's 4 already.
All right. We got 3 or 4 on the float, make it so.
Make it work.
You want something nice with a rainbow and a pot of gold?
Yes.
All right here.
Okay, cool. Any other additional business? If not, we will go into executive session for litigation. I will entertain a motion.
I will move
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we'll go into executive session and open up the citizen comment.
I love executive session.
Yes, ma'am.
My favorite time of year. I used to get it